the county administrator, Jeff Aludo, a happy belated birthday. Birthday was yesterday, and he's lying about his age.
Right.
We will not tolerate Jeff. Just so you know.
His tie is 35 years old.
That's right.
Right. All right. So we've got a couple items today. The first of which is the 2021 County Health Plan proposal. And I think that HR through Frank Spataro and Sarah Irwin have visited all of our offices to bring us up to speed on this health plan proposal. But I will kick it over to you, Jeff, to start the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So I'm going to flip it over to Frank and Sarah here, who I think are in the same office remotely pretty quickly. But just as the board is aware, our health care program for employees, our health benefits program is an incredibly important aspect of our overall benefits program that we provide, both from the perspective of attracting and retaining employees within the county, and also as it relates to the budget. It's a significant budget item, and as we get into budget cycle, which we're currently in, this is always a good time to review the plan, bring it forward to the board, talk about any major changes that we're looking at, and making sure the board is okay with that as we move forward. To the general fund, our health plan constitutes roughly 10% of our general fund budget, and that has been increasing pretty significantly over the past decade. We've done a lot of different things to help hold that cost down. We are a self-insured employer. We have looked at things. We've taken a holistic approach as it relates to implementing wellness programming. We've contracted for the bundling of certain bundling of services for certain conditions. We've instituted a health reimbursement arrangement. We provide employees ready options for pursuing low or no cost preventative care and pharmaceuticals through our employee health clinic to help manage chronic conditions and keep the costs down of our chronic conditions. So we've done a lot of things, and the board's been very proactive in taking a lot of activity or a lot of proactive action to keep those costs down and keep the cost curve on our health spend down. But again, although we are self-insured, the selection of a medical insurance provider is still a very strategic and significant action by the county in terms of as it relates to both impacting the type of service that we're able to provide and also impacting budget. So I'm going to turn it over here to Sarah and Frank, but suffice it to say that we'll be making a recommendation for a change in that provider relationship in the course of this discussion, and assuming that the board concurs with that, we would recommend bringing that forward. I believe we may have a resolution today, but we'd be happy to bring that forward as a by leave on Thursday, just to provide some time for that to be out there publicly as well. So with that being said, I'm going to kick it over to Sarah, and at the same time, I'm going to share my screen so that the board can see the summary that Frank and Sarah had pulled together for this conversation.
Great.
Frank and Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear us okay, first of all?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. I will wait till the screen is shared. So just kind of high level, we have almost 4,300 county employees, with about 3,700 of those employees covered by our health plan. And when you factor in their family members, we're covering 8,100 employees and their family members on our health plan, costing almost $16,000 per employee per year. It's a big budget item. $63 million was the 2020 budget. A vast majority of that covered by the county. Looking forward to 2021.
Sarah, I'm sorry if I could just real quick, just to reconcile the numbers. The $63 million number is the cost to all funds throughout the county. The general fund, only portion of that is typically between 25 and 29 million in the general fund.
Correct. Thank you. So looking forward to 2021, had we not gone out to bid for health insurance, we would have been looking at almost a 6% increase, which, you know, on a $63 million budget, that's a large chunk of change. About $3.4 million is what we were looking at. As a result of our RFP process, so we didn't have to go out to bid, but we took the initiative to go ahead and do that for 2021. Understand there might be some potential for some savings out there. Through that RFP, what we were able to achieve is a lower expected cost. Instead of a 6% increase, we're looking at less than 2%. It's about 1.4, 1.5%, less than $1 million increase, as opposed to the $3.4 million. Through this RFP, we brought in 2 finalists, and United Healthcare really stood out to us as part of this process. Number one, because of the financial piece. And they brought forward a couple of other unique ideas. One in particular here is this concept of an on-site nurse advocate, or what we like to call almost like a plan concierge. It will be someone that is available in county facilities, able to help employees navigate the health plan, especially in that first year as employees are trying to navigate the change. Maybe there might be a pharmacy issue that they are experiencing, which is common with any carrier change, or even just at the beginning of any plan year without a carrier change. So we really liked this concept, something that we'll be able to utilize and take advantage of at no cost in year one. The other great thing is it's the same 3 plan options for our employees. So the terminology that people are used to, the same deductibles, the same coverage first options that we're used to, the $500 benefit allowance, those things are still built into the plan. And with really minimal disruption to our employees. So the savings is there, and there's minimal disruption. This 99.3% number you see on this page here is really saying of all the claims dollars we've incurred in the past, 99.3% of those are still considered in-network claims with United Healthcare. So that's a vast majority. And I want to say the number with Anthem was traditionally our in-network claims were about 98.6%. So it really close. But again, a vast majority of our claims dollars would still be considered in-network. So most employees shouldn't see a provider issue. The next item here is a potential for pharmacy disruption. Now, I want to make sure I point out that even had we stayed with our current carrier, we would have seen a disruption from a pharmacy perspective. With the proposals that we received, they contained different formularies than what we currently have available. What this disruption says is we have 106 members taking 275 drugs for 1,400 different prescription fills over the course of the year that would be impacted in one way, shape, or form. That being said, I did a quick look at some things that we have in-house. So a lot of this disruption, a lot of the prescriptions, the drugs that are considered disruption, meaning the employee wouldn't be able to fill that particular drug anymore, is really just a brand name preference between the current carrier and the recommended carrier. So a prime example is one carrier might choose to cover the test strips for the One Touch Ultra for a diabetic, whereas the other carrier, the Accu-Check, might be their preferred brand. So it's still something covered, but it's not necessarily something that the employees won't be able to receive. Additionally, something that our office is really going to work hard to identify is what drugs that are part of this disruption list might employees be able to access through our health at no cost. So they might actually have a positive change if we really get them to engage with our health. I did a quick run through of the covered drugs through our health, and I want to say 2/3 of those are really addressed through our health. 2/3 of those disruptions are covered through our health in some way, shape, or form. It might not be the exact same drug, but there's some kind of equivalent. So that's the good news. And other good news, I think, is this lower increase. When you look at that employee contribution change there, these are really low increases. This is probably the best we've seen in a really long time in terms of the cost change to employees. So employees who are on that Blue 3000 plan are going to see an 80 cent per month increase if they were to keep that same coverage from 2020 to 2021. And you can see the different changes there. Again, I think this is really a best case scenario based on where the market has been. 2020 is kind of an anomaly in terms of claims experience just because of things closing down for a while. But all in all, I think these are really, really good numbers for us, and we feel good about this recommendation of United Healthcare. Any questions about that piece before I move on?
No, I've done a quick back of the napkin math, Sarah, and from my calculations, given the estimates with the previous insurance plan and then the expectations with this one, we're saving $2,613,000. So I want to applaud you for the work in doing this and helping the county save and the individual's employees save as well. Mm-hmm. So I just want to note that this is really great work.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
I agree.
I want to touch on our health too, because I know we made a big investment in moving to our health. And while this isn't necessarily part of the overall discussion here in terms of the self-insurance fund, it is our employee engagement here is really important. And a key highlight we took away, Haran helped calculate some of these numbers for us. And one key takeaway I took from this was our employees who have chronic health conditions, if they are engaged with our health, they're costing us $3,500 less per year than employees with chronic conditions who are not engaged with our health. So our goal is really to continue to push our membership, our employees, their spouses, their children with chronic conditions through our health so that we can and continue to achieve those savings and watch that trend go down. That trend number there, it's an 18% decrease in trend compared to, I think it was a 1.5% increase in trend for employees who have chronic conditions who are not engaged with our health. So our goal here is to improve the incentive campaign for 2021 and try to get people moving towards our health, and that's what those bullet points are there. These are similar to what we've done in the past where we say, go to your primary care physician or go to our health and you'll get a biometric screening. This is really more of a stair step to get people in early so we can start achieving more savings earlier on in the plan year. Any thoughts, questions about the our health piece?
Can you just mention, my understanding is the flu shots are available for county employees at our health?
Yeah, so employees who are enrolled in the medical plan today are eligible to get flu shots now through our health. They just need to make an appointment, go online. They can also call the number if just go to our health. I want to say it's ourhealth.org. We can make that available as well. If employees have questions about that, they can email us at benefits@hamilton-co.org and we can point them in the right direction. But yes, they're available for free through our health right now. And I think we just announced this at the end of September and we already had close to 100 employees get flu shots in September alone. 75 employees in the last 10 days of the month. So the word is spreading.
All right. So our challenge to our employees is go get your flu shot. I don't know about you ladies, but I'm a little behind the curve here. So go get my flu shot. All right.
Okay, and then just the last few things on the list, we also did an RFP for vision insurance for 2021, and this came in awesome as well. You can see that our recommendation is to go to Humana. We've had Humana in the past for vision coverage, so this is something employees who have been here a few years would be used to. The contributions for employees are actually down compared to 2020, and if you compare those rates to the blue plan, for the medical insurance, interestingly enough, it's comparable increase to a comparable decrease on those plans. So if we have an employee who's enrolled in, double coverage on the blue plan and they have double coverage on the vision plan, their their change is almost zero for 2021. Great news. There might be a little bit of disruption there. We heard there's one sort of big carrier on the vision side, but it's not necessarily the whole practice. It's just providers within the practice. So employees will just have to be making sure they ask the question of their providers if Humana is a covered provider with their vision. So And then the other plans didn't go out to bid, so there's no changes with those. And we would be bringing forward a resolution to cover all of these items on Thursday if we don't have any other issues or questions.
Okay. Again, thank you. Thank you for your diligence here. I mean, this is really great news and good work for the employees and the overall impact to the general fund, of course. So commissioners, any comments or questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Absolutely, the hard work that was done here. I also want to thank you, how it benefits all of us in the community. And your projection about our health and the savings that we would have is beyond what I even thought we would receive. So that's awesome. And I've gotten accustomed to our health, and they're great. I just had a question about the 3 optional, when you go down to, we have an option of 3 additional years. And I was just wondering, is there our contract is for 3 years. We have an option of 3 more. Does the clause for 3 more include no increases in rates, or is it a cap on how much they could raise our rates? I'm sure it's flexible, but I was just wondering, was there anything?
So for United Healthcare, the rate guarantee is 3 years. And that's really, the rate guarantee is really associated with the administrative costs. So the claims costs will still fluctuate based on trend and employee utilization. So that's a little harder to predict, but the administrative cost, there's a rate guarantee.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Parks?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Sarah and Frank, this is what I call when the brain trust goes into the think tank. It's just awesome, awesome work. Saving money, doing the work to come out with the best possible outcomes. So I'm so happy about it, and congratulations, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And relatively little disruption, of course, to our employees, which I know we all think is important. All right. So we have the resolution in front of us, but I've heard it said that, maybe we'll put this on the agenda as a by-leave item for Thursday, let everybody take an extra look at it, and then get ready to move on it Thursday. Is that okay with everybody?
That's fine.
Yeah, sure, it's okay with me.
Okay, great. All right. So thank you to Sarah and Frank for being with us, and we'll look forward to taking this up on Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Our next item is an update on bridge projects from MSD. Holly Chrisman, Diana Christie are both with us. So these are the projects that we have discussed these in the past. They have been agreed to by both the city and the county. And so we are simply being provided with an update from my understanding. Holly, correct me if I'm wrong here.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Yes, that is correct. As you may recall, in an effort to increase communication between MSD and the county, MSD is providing updates to the board once a month. And we thought jointly with MSD, it would be a good opportunity to provide an update on these projects that are being implemented from the end of phase 1 of the consent decree through the beginning of phase 2. So I thank you, Diana, for pulling together this presentation and providing this update.
Yep. Thanks. Director Christie.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, commissioners, for having us today. I'm going to share my screen, so let me do that now and to make sure that this works. I already messed it up. Hold on. Okay, share a screen, and this should work. Is everyone seeing that? And I'll put it in presentation.
Yep.
Okay. Wait. Trying to put it in presentation mode. There we go. Okay. I am at the end of my presentation, so
I'm trying to follow along and I don't see it. All right.
There we go. I'm ready. Okay. So thank you again for having us. This is just a brief presentation. As Holly said, we're here today to provide an update. We're not at this, we don't have any requests for the board to act on. But certainly provide this update and hopefully answer any questions that you might have. This is just quickly, the topics we want to cover today, the background and the need for the bridge, then to give a project schedule status, as well as get into the reasons for some of the projects that have been delayed. I'll provide an overview of the spend annually on the bridge projects and also in relation to the overall capital program, and some lessons learned and benefits of these projects. Jumping right in, I think, I always like to make sure that anyone who's listening knows what the bridge is. And when we say that, bridge projects are sewer projects. These are projects that are required to fulfill our obligations under the consent decree that MSD entered into. The consent decree, as you all know, is a series of remedial measures that are required for us to comply with the Clean Water Act, and in particular, to address primarily combined sewer overflows and sanitary sewer overflows. So our consent decree is being implemented by what we all agreed to as the Wet Weather Improvement Program, or the WIP. And those are a number of hundreds of projects that have all been agreed upon between the parties, MSD and the county, and the regulators. But they are implemented in phases. Our consent decree allows us to determine the schedule of projects and their completion based on a number of factors, economic factors, and the overall affordability of our community to implement this program. So we had been working on our phase one. As you know, the phase one was a 10-year phase of projects that were to be completed by the end of 2018. And at that time, as we were nearing the end of 2018, we, MSD and the county, were working together on a phase two submittal that was due in June of 2017. And we needed some more time. We were working together. We were, I think, working towards a mutual consensus phase two at that time. And we collectively agreed to request an extension to submit our phase two plan. We requested a 1-year extension, and to get that, we agreed to this bridge schedule, if you will. So really, I just think it's important because it gets confusing. We are just in between our phase one and our phase two. We set aside, or we looked at these projects and we agreed to do them and buy a little bit more time, if you will, to complete that phase two schedule. So we selected projects, again, from those predetermined WIP projects. We tried to select projects that were ready to proceed, or we felt that they were ready to proceed, and they could be completed in this short time frame. The project descriptions and schedules were all agreed to by the parties, and those were agreed upon, and then there was an acceptance of this modification to our consent decree in April of 2018. At that time, that's also when we obtained the extension to submit the phase two for 1 year. So again, the bridge is a series of sewer projects. There's 20 projects. It says 26 index numbers. That just refers to the original WIP index number. So sometimes you can achieve compliance. We can really satisfy more than one index number with one project. So 20 projects, 26 index numbers, and those are, I'll get into more detail as we go, but 16 construction projects, 2 projects that we were just designing, and 2 studies. So moving on, I know it's difficult to read the details of this. This is really just an illustration to show, this snapshot that we have been tracking monthly to update just really ourselves so that I can be updated. We share this with the county team on the status of the projects. We're doing this monthly, and we will oftentimes, as you can see on this snapshot from September 1st, we had a lot of black dots because those are indications of projects that are forecasted to miss the consent decree milestone. So in most cases, the milestone was a substantial completion date. In some cases, the milestone was a design criteria, so it wasn't that we had to have it complete. I'm going to get into why projects have been delayed, but this is what we've been tracking. And then we also just to remind you, we do provide a quarterly report to the regulators, and we share a little more detail as far as the schedule, the schedule and any delays that we're either forecasting or working to correct. And this is just another illustration really of our schedule status. So as you can see here, we have completed 8 projects. We have 3 that are underway that are on schedule, and then the remaining 8 are delayed for some reason. So meaning they've either already missed a milestone, or our schedule indicates that we will miss the milestone. As I will note later on particular projects, the county and MSD did submit a request to modify the schedule last year that has not been acted upon. So we, again, in addition to that, we provide regular updates to the regulators so that they are aware of these delays and the causes and what we're doing to mitigate the delay or to bring the projects back on track. As you can see, this is just a general reference to the causes of delays. So land acquisition and ROW is right of way. This is an area where with these projects and selection of the projects, it was assumed that we would not have a lot of complications in land acquisition and right of way. And unfortunately, that has not been the case in each one of these. We do have some impacts from COVID-19, and we have provided notices on this as well. In addition, some other contractor issues have popped up. The scope that increased on one of our projects, and then a schedule coordination with ODOT. So that's a specific project that is really an ODOT project, and I'll describe that later. I also put engineering questions because we have had the delay of one project that you all are very familiar with, which is our Upper Muddy Creek Interceptor, which is now proceeding, and we can talk about that in another slide. So there's no questions there. I'll get into a bit more detail. So these are the projects completed and have been completed within the time frame. So thankfully, we do have 8 on this list, and unless you have questions, I don't need to read through them all. But a couple were design only, as you can see at the first 2, and then the others are construction completion.
Hey, Diana, can I back you up for a moment?
Yes.
Related to the delays, what do you have an average length of delay for the projects that have been delayed?
No, I don't. And I mean, I'm sure one of the folks on the line with me who I forgot to introduce, both Ryan Welsh and Matt Spaderi, could maybe determine that and chime in a few minutes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Just looking at the chart, it's really, I don't know that an average would be a good indicator, because we have a few that are very late and others that are just, a couple months off. So again, we have requested a modification, because we knew a while ago that we were going to miss some of these targets by, months, not days. And in a couple cases, I think in one over a year.
I think it might be helpful for the board to understand that because we're the ones that get the calls from disgruntled constituents that want to know when the projects are going to move. So just by way of context, it doesn't have to be an exact number, but I was just curious.
Sure.
Thank you.
We can get that. So here are the 3 projects that I noted that were currently under construction and on. The first 2, first one is a high water, dry weather protection at 2 of our CSOs. So that's underway and expected to be completed. And then we have treatment improvements at our Little Miami wastewater treatment plant on the east side. Those are underway and on schedule. These Columbia Square development, this is a sewer separation project. This showed as a black dot on our chart, but we are only forecasting a couple weeks beyond our milestone date. And that's really because we have some weather delays factored into our schedule, which we are hoping we will not see. and we're working right now with our contractor and our project team to make sure that this does not miss the milestone. So I'm confident, I'm not positive, but I'm fairly confident that this one will be achieved on time. And that's why we're reporting it as on schedule. However, these are the 8 projects that are forecasted to miss bridge milestones, and in some cases have already missed milestones. As you can see, we tried to indicate at a very high level what the cause of the delay was, relating back to the prior slide. But I can, if you will, I'll go through and just note generally on each one the status and what the delay is related to. So the first project listed is it's coordination with the ODOT, the Ohio Department of Transportation. So it's actually an ODOT project, and it will our CSO reconstruction is incorporated into their project. So we really don't have control over that schedule, and this was acknowledged in the bridge modification by regulators. So while it did have a milestone date, the flexibility for the coordination with ODOT was recognized, and we don't perceive that as a concern. And again, we've been reporting that to them. The Muddy Creek at Westbourne, this is the high rate treatment facility phase A. This is one where the primary delay was due to COVID, because the project was at a pretty critical state earlier this year when things really became chaotic, and we had some delays in procurement of equipment and our contractors with getting equipment for the project. And we've also, I think since that time, yes, we've also had some delays in like our training and startup coordination because of the inability to have people in the facility doing the training. We have since earlier this year, we've put together a plan to safely allow for that to progress. This is one project where we did notify the regulators with a notice of force majeure, meaning it's an event, act of God out of our control, and they're on notice of that. The third project is the CSO 214. This is a partial separation. This is an adaptive management project to separate the stormwater from our combined sewer. And the primary reason for delay here, it's like there's 2 on this one. So we did have some delays initially just with COVID and the inability to progress with our project team. But we've also had some right-of-way delays here with negotiations and meetings, which are tied into the COVID status. We sent a force majeure letter to the regulators on this one as well, and it is now progressing, and we will be able to complete the project. It's just been delayed. The CSO 83 and 472, this is dynamic underflow control. This particular project really did face some challenges in terms of the acquisition of property and changes in design. This was prior to COVID, so it's not due to COVID, but it is primarily the location of this work is in an area where the property owners had significant concerns with our construction access needs and had asked us to consider some alternatives, which we have done and made some modifications to the design. One of the property owners is a large nursing home and retirement community, and therefore we knew that their concerns needed to be considered, and so those were addressed in some modifications to the design. And at this time, we are still working on the overall right-of-way and property acquisition with that property owner and a couple others. So trying to pull that one back on schedule, but that delay was fairly significant. The SSO 700, so this is our SSO 700 facility. The bridge actually, if you recall, there was 2 phases to this work. The first phase was completed, so that was one of our projects completed on schedule, but the disinfection improvements have been delayed The board was advised about this, I can't recall how many months ago, but we did have initial bids that came in that were too high, and this project had to be rebid. So in the course of rebidding it, there was also a need to modify the schedule and provide additional time. And therefore, the delays on this are really related to not having the best picture in terms of the costs of this project and the schedule for this project until we got further into it. I know we discussed it in detail at a board meeting months ago, but I do have both Matt Spadari and Ryan Welsh on if there are specific questions about that particular issue. Since that time, this project is proceeding again, and we don't have any other delays. So CSO 513, this is another sewer separation project, and we are kind of similar to the others. With COVID, it was really at a critical time with the need to negotiate with property owners, and so that has delayed this project. And the Mill Creek High Rate Treatment Facility, this is the diversion structure. And I know that we've discussed this before as well, but as a reminder, the diversion structure in working on the design and preparing to construct the diversion structure, which allows us to bypass our pump station to do improvements, we discovered that our sewer interceptor was in very poor condition, and there were concerns that if we completed the construction of the diversion structure, we could have a catastrophic failure of our interceptor sewer. So we had to instead really add scope to this project and to shore up the structural integrity of that interceptor sewer so that we could then do the deep excavation for this diversion structure. So that required a pretty significant change in the scope of this bridge project, and it's something that was part of the request for the modification to the regulators, because in effect, we are doing more than we had agreed to do in the bridge, and spending more and achieving more benefit and compliance with our consent decree with this particular project. We had to advance other work to get to where we needed to be. That project is now, underway, the diversion structure, and we completed the repair to the interceptor. The board provided additional funding for that. So thank you. And again, it's part of that notification and request that the regulators are already aware of. And the last one on here is the UMCI. This is the Upper Muddy Creek Interceptor that we have talked about a lot. And it was delayed as we worked through some of those questions and concerns from the county team and the board. And I'm happy that it is now underway. So that, if there aren't questions on the reasons for delay, I will move on to the spending to date.
Commissioners, any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, I read your lips, Victoria, no questions. You're on mute.
Great,
Okay.
no questions.
Thank you. So this is our, the table at the top shows the year-to-date totals. It's not cumulative at the top. So we have our total capital expenditures in those years. And then the total WIP, so again, the consent decree spend for each year. And then of that, what portion of the consent decree total is for the bridge projects. So that is per year. So you can see in 2019, it was about 20 million. For 2020, this is a forecasted total. We have expenditures through September, of course, and then it's what we expect to spend through the remainder of 2020. And then to point out, so the bridge agreement, and I just want to be clear, the bridge does have these dollar amounts that are expected expenditures per year. However, it does not indicate that there is a cap on the spending or a limit on the spending. So ultimately, the requirement is to complete the projects. And it was an expectation that was at a cost of 49 million by the end of 2019, and then an additional 12 million of work that would take place in 2020. So as you can see, we've shared the cumulative spend below, and really, if you focus on the bottom bullet, that's the $2,006. So we have spent to date about just over 7 million. So we're close to that. But we have not spent, we've not completed the spending goal. But we are, of course, continuing to work on these projects. I know it's always difficult when we're looking at the comparison of $2,006, but that is the dollars that are used throughout our consent decree. So if there aren't any questions there.
Yeah, I have a question, Diana. I see on the WIP, it went down from 2018 to 19, but on the bridge projects, it quadrupled almost. So do you think that is because we've identified more areas that need repair, or we start repairing faster? What do you think that difference between 18 and 19 is?
So the difference between 18 and 19 is primarily the end of phase one was to be the end of 2018. So we had a big push there in 2018 to complete projects. The largest of which is the Lower Mill Creek Partial Remedy, which is also the Lick Run Valley Conveyance System, which was continued, and we still have expenditures on that project, but that continued into 2019. However, the phase one projects really started to, not fall off, but we completed them. So that's where you see that reduction. But that really, I guess that 2018 is due to that Lick Run project going, starting around that time, and really spending a significant amount of money on that. The bridge, really, we weren't doing much of the construction work until 2019. So it's really those two, one ramping down and one ramping up.
Okay.
Well, and Diana, it's also true that the bridge was to take us from one phase to another. And so the timing there is important, because the bridge was related, as you can see, to that extra spend. We weren't in a bridge phase prior to that. And so there's not near as much spending there as there is as we go into the bridge timeframe between the two different phases.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then quickly, I just included some lessons learned. These are things we've talked about, and we've talked about with the county team. As you know, we just talked about these projects that have what we call a negative float, meaning our schedule shows that we will miss milestones, which we don't want to be in this position. And as we work on the phase two planning, and we've been working on this with the county team, we really want to be mindful of what we've seen with these bridge projects and why they we missed the mark in a sense on some of the schedules. As we get further away from when the WIP was put together, the project budgets are they're very much estimates, and we really have work to do to update those. But we also need to really define the project scopes and make sure that there's a clear understanding of that, and including what we may need from a right-of-way and permitting, and just coordination effort from parties that we don't have control over, and those need to be factored in. And then this idea of a consistent baseline schedule and using a standard, this is the effort we've been going through with our program management team to really update our program and our project delivery, so that for every project we're using the same standards and baseline, that is something that is tracked and also I think reported on and shared with the commissioners. So those are efforts that are underway now, and I think are important to carry forward as we put together a phase two. But we do have some benefits already from the bridge. the overall volume reduction, so the overall overflow reduction is going to exceed the original estimates for these projects. So that is good news for the environment and public health. The projects have also helped improve reliability of our treatment plants and our facilities. So we're seeing both wet weather and asset management improvements from these projects. And I think there are, these are goals that we also have going forward that both, I know you commissioners and the county team have expressed to us. So really wanting to see, these goals met where we're not only meeting the wet weather requirements, but we're also at the same time using those same dollars to achieve the asset management needs of the district. Below are just some notable specific benefits and some of the more substantial projects that will be completed. The UMCI, as you may recall, that project allows us to eliminate a large underground storage tank. So we're eliminating a future WIP project by completing that. The projects at the SSO 700 facility are significant in reducing and disinfecting overflows to the Mill Creek. And that will have a significant impact there. And then again, that large project that we had to add the scope to really allowed us to mitigate risk of that interceptor as part of this work. So these are very important projects, and we, going into phase 2, we're going to build off of this, and we'd like to take the positives and then the lessons learned to have a better plan going forward.
So Diana, up to the overflow issue, so the overflow volume reduction will exceed original estimates. Can you help us better understand how much?
I wanted to have a number coming into today, and I was unable to get that. So this is
Ryan's on the line. Let's just.
I was going to say, let's ask. I'm going to phone a friend and ask Ryan Welsh if he can put that into some context for us. And I think Ryan and Matt both logged in with my link, and so I show up. Ryan shows up as me, I believe, unless he's.
No, I think I'm under my
you're Ryan now.
correct name now.
There we go.
Thanks.
Hi, Ryan.
Yeah, I'll try to add as much information as I can. So our model predicts that we'll have more benefits than what we thought we would going in. A lot of that is for the Upper Muddy Creek Interceptor project, but in addition, some of the other CSO elimination projects. We'll know more when we complete the construction and we do flow monitoring and update the model. So we won't really have a definitive answer for probably another year or so.
I'm sorry, how long?
About another year.
Oh, okay. I think it might be helpful for us because we know about the consent decree and our obligations here. And so it's hard to put it in context, though, without any numbers or percentages, because we're doing better, but it's all relative. Because it's such a huge undertaking with a very old sewer system like what we have here in Hamilton County. So maybe at the next update, could you just provide some numbers so that we can put all of this into context and get a better understanding of how we're doing, kind of a status report with some percentages linked to it?
Yes, we can work on that.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
One thing I just want to add on that, I know we don't have those numbers necessarily for these bridge projects, but for the phase 1 work, which was completed over the last 10 years, we estimate we show that we've achieved, I want to say it's 6 billion gallons have been eliminated. 6 billion gallons of overflows have been eliminated from our system. So like the Lower Mill Creek partial remedy is 500 million just on its own. So these are significant improvements, and I would really like to, I think that's a great idea, help people understand that and understand, what this investment really means to water quality in our community, because there's significant reductions. So as Ryan said, for the bridge projects, those measures are really, once the projects are completed and we can complete the flow monitoring and update the model. But for phase one, we have some pretty good numbers already.
Okay,
And some
thank you.
site, but it's kind of hard to find. So I will share that.
Questions?
I have just a general question. Diana, you said way at the beginning about that you had requested to modify the schedule, but it's not been acted upon. And I was just a little confused about, is that the request is made to the regulators or Hamilton County team, the board, or a combination of both?
Yeah, so that was a request. It was a joint request from both MSD and the county. And so it was a request to the regulators to modify the milestones in the bridge agreement. And while they have acknowledged receipt of that, and again, we continue to update them, they have not acted upon it. So it wasn't approved or denied. So that your team is interested in following up on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Have.
I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
really helpful update. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for the information. We really appreciate it. And yeah, this is helpful. And yeah, if you could just provide just a little bit more context by way of the numbers next time, that would be great. So, all right, thank you. Thanks for being on.
Thank you. All right, stop sharing.
All right. That completes our agenda other than our executive session. Do we have anything else to come before the board? Oh, I've got one thing. It's election day. Early voting has started. And I was out at the BOE this morning, and the line is wrapped around that building. And the voting, just for those listening who may want to go vote early, the voting actually is in the back of the building, of the BOE building. It used to be you enter in the front. It is no longer the case. You enter through the back. You'll see the line. It's really long, to allow for people to come through and drive through and drop off their ballots once they get those completed. And there's been a lot of confusion about when people get their ballots. I was just with my mom yesterday, and she said, I haven't got my ballot yet. They didn't go out until today. And so just to remind people, don't panic yet. Ballots hopefully are in the mail. But that said, if you haven't gotten it in the next week or two, call the Board of Elections and make sure that you are on that list and you get your ballot and you have the opportunity to vote. But we have begun. We have begun election season here in Hamilton County. So big shout out to the BOE for all the work they've done to retrofit the facility and make sure that people are safe.
Absolutely.
Oh, did you sleep out last night?
Well, now, I went to visit those that were sleeping out last night.
Oh.
But there was a DJ and there was some dancing going on, but I did not. It was cold. It was cold last night, but people did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Madam President, I'd just like to mention that the city of Cincinnati is having a public hearing this evening at 6:00. Any residents or anyone that wants to come and speak as it relates to the Lincoln Heights gun range are certainly welcome to do it. I know that we had planned on also going to City Hall.
And I believe we have noticed the meeting. Jeff, just checking on that. Leslie is shaking her head.
I believe Jackie noticed it yesterday.
Thank you.
So I have a question about it. Will speakers speak during the meeting, or do they need to be there before the meeting starts?
They'll be speaking during the public hearing. They'll speak during the meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Because they do things differently.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point, though. They need to try to get there earlier to sign up to say that they're going to speak, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they usually do public comment before the meeting. But because this is a public hearing, the expectation is they'll do it during the meeting.
Right.
So that's probably our expectation.
Oh, it is indeed.
So have we checked with them?
That's a reasonable expectation. Well, it's a public hearing, so yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, it's going to be during the meeting.
Okay.
In fact, I think it goes council members, commissioners, we're all limited to like 1 or 2 minutes, and then we hear from the public. So I think that's the idea.
Okay, great.
Okay, and some of the council members, I know Jan Michelle at least has visited the sheriff's gun range and has a much better understanding of what that looks like and what the opportunity could be there. And I think there will be some renderings also available.
Oh, wonderful.
So yeah, it should be really interesting.
I agree.
All right. Well, thank you. So without further ado, I'm going to move that we go into executive session pursuant to RC Section 121.22 G3 to conduct a conference with an attorney concerning MSD.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse,
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks.
Yes.